So let's start. Since previous lesson, we start using Firebase. We set it up project for example. Example is to-do list, which is just variation from textbook example. I had to change it because it wasn't upgraded. It was using previous version of the library, and API is not compatible. So I had to rewrite some of it. And I reorganized it kind of inside of the code according to second version of the same example that is not finished by our author. She is working on it, but since I don't have second improved version, I applied the same logic to first version. And so I just started explaining. It will probably take at least two more lessons, or maybe 3 lessons, maybe even 4, to finish all explanations, because it is quite large. And it's not just storing data on server side. It contains more things. Storing data is probably 1 or 2 lessons extra, but there are other things as well in this example. Assignment 3 is due on next Saturday, and after this, you need to work on assignment 4, or if we finish assignment 3, start working on assignment 4. What about assignment 4? Assignment 4 is planned to be somewhat similar to do list example, because it really makes sense to have assignment that is using Firebase, like cloud storage. And since it's the only topic planned to be covered like this, and perhaps more examples, but it will be in the end and kind of pile it up. So I expect that this will be understood in detail, so you can do assignment based on this, on to-do list. At the previous lesson, we discussed that this to-do list, which is make it so variation, original code is called make it so. Variation of make it so does have some lack of features. For example, in typical to-do list programs, there are a few around. You know, it's not a secret. But of course, they have advanced features like add images, add some file attach it, and some linking to calendar between app links and so on. All of it is skipped for the sake of simplicity, and even in this scenario, it is quite large program. One typical feature that happens in to-do list programs, it's not just sharing between different users. This is actually not that common. The most common one is to have multiple to-do lists in the program. This has only one, which is kind of really lack of feature. I don't want to add to your assignment something similar, like more than one list in the program, because this example doesn't have it, and most likely I won't have time to write the one that has. But it is a good idea to have some kind of programming experience on top of what is explained in class. And of course, it shouldn't be like required, because if it is not explained in class, how can I require that? And it may take time to learn as well. But it seems some creativity and some independent research, not research in terms of like research of scientific research, but research of new topics within already known ones and described ones. It's definitely a plus. I was thinking how to include it. So I suggest something, and of course you can say no because it's optional. It's an optional choice. When you work on assignment 4 will be shopping list. I will describe what is required. but it will have an option to have more than one shopping list in it. It's optional, it is not for extra credit, but I want to have it as option instead of exam if you want, your choice. Of course, if you don't choose it, you take exam. And students who don't choose it, they take exam. By default, it's exam. It is due on assignment date. So if this extra feature doesn't work for you, okay, fine, you take exam. you don't miss anything. But if it works for you, you submit it as assignment 4, I graded by exam, it works for me, fine. 100% for exam if it works perfectly. Of course, if something like obviously wrong with it, it will be less. In this case, you will have a choice to take exam if you want to have better grades than that. How do you feel about it?
Could you repeat that one more time?
If you add extra feature to assignment 4, to have more than one list, it will be a shopping list. Instead of to-do list, it will be shopping list. If you add extra feature, it is only one extra feature. You can add whatever you like, but the one which is required. To have more than one list in the program, for example, in this to-do list, you start and you have the list. But when you start that program, you'll have a list of lists, essentially. You have extra screen where you have to choose your list, and after this, you add it. And it has to be any number of lists, so users should be able to add additional lists and delete additional lists, delete any list. It is not fixed to 2 lists or 3 lists, because otherwise students will just copy-paste the same stuff twice or 3 times. It's not about learning experience, it will be blind copy-pasting. A requirement is to have like any number of lists, like logicals. You add list, of course, on the database side, it is more complicated. On the programming side, it's more complicated. And it requires extra study, extra looking up, but it's definitely learning experience that should be rewarded. So reward is like, if you do it, you don't have to take exam. But warning, preparation for exam may take less time than to do this one. Okay? So it's again your choice, because definitely preparation for exam may take less time than this programming. It is for cases if you are interested in learning extra stuff. Right? And obviously, Firebase experience is useful not just for Android, because you saw that it has all kinds of API for web programming, for iOS. So it is not just scope of Android. You have to do database part besides Android programming. So I'm not sure how you feel about it, but again, it's option if you want to take it as an option. If you don't, yes, you just take regular exam. So exam will be offered anyway, even nobody will choose, or at least one student will choose to take it. At least one, okay, yeah, I will grade assignment before exam. So you will know. But if it works, like, you can count on it, so you will get decent grade if it works. You will get partial credit only if something obviously broken with it. Yes?
Just to confirm, so it's to get that additional option, it's when you make assignment 4, we make the option to make more lists, so like almost like an encapsulation of lists.
No, you have to redo database part for sure for this.
Database for sure.
Yes, and GUI also, you will have to have extra screen to choose the list. Internal logic will change because you need to pass list ID between the first screen and second one. It does definitely more work, and this programming part may require more time than preparation for exam plus exam for sure. Because it requires thinking, but again, I see it as useful learning experience. Learning more about Firebase, definitely Firebase storage. And this experience is useful anyway, even if you don't do Android programming, any kind of iOS programming or even web programming.
I think it'd be fair if you post post the assignment 4 a little bit earlier then because of this extra component. So if students want to do that and it takes that much time, I feel like if you post the assignment 4 either earlier or extend the deadline.
No extension for assignment 4. The reason is that what if it fails, students should take exam. So they need to know about it. So assignment, I will assume that many students will try and many of them will fail because it is more complicated than it looks. So for this reason, it has to be due way before exam, like regular assignment due time. It's not exam day. So you know that it's working or not working. So this is, and it won't take me long to grade because if it is one, I will catch up. So let's look it up. Week 1, class plan. I believe it is due 1 week before exam. And I want to keep it this way, see 1 week before exam. Actually, it's not 1 week, it is actually less. Because exam is on Tuesday, but it is due on Saturday.
I would like to do it, but for me, I have capstone defense.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's any way you could post it earlier.
Oh, you can submit it when you want. I will post it earlier, and I will keep Dropbox open. So if you finish it next week, unlikely.
Well,
Yeah, unlikely, most likely it will take at least 2 weeks to do. Fine? Okay. So I will make it like a formal description so you can refer to it. Like it is definitely a useful learning experience. And I would say that students who can manage to do that, they deserve perfect grade for exam, for sure. Because this is how, it's not trivial, for sure. And it's definitely something to consider in terms of extra learning, but be warned because it may appear easier than it actually is. Okay? So for this reason, there is no extension for it. It is due on Saturday. If you cannot make it work on Saturday night, you have to take exam on Tuesday next week. Coming week after that, like regular time. So if it fails on Saturday, that part, definitely you should make work assignment 3 with 1 list. So if additional lists don't do it, you will not get credit for exam, but you will have credit for 1 list, for sure. Any questions for this one? I think it makes sense. It is due not 1 week before exam, it is several days, which makes sense. So you have time, Saturday night that doesn't work. You Sunday, Monday, you have 2 days before exam. Not big deal to prepare. Okay. Any questions, suggestions? I think it's used. It is formally like not in class plan, but class plan does not have specification for exam. It just says exam. So I have freedom for that. And in any cases, if professor changes something and it is formally defined, if you appeal is on your side. Of course, professor may get in trouble, but if something like announced it formally in class or posted, and appeal is always on your side. It's never backwards. If it is described like. Later, when I change second class plan again, it's probably for summer, I will put it formally there. Not for this assignment, it will be just another assignment with another part. I cannot repeat the same thing again, otherwise students will just pass it. And okay, like a project option instead of exam, but okay. And it's individual, you cannot do it in groups. Let's make it clear, it's individual. Any questions? No? So let's continue. Just 1 second. So that was formal announcement. Consider doing it, but warning, it may take longer than it appears. Just start, see, and plan your time. And if it doesn't work, yeah, okay, take exam. So you're not missing stuff. And even if you don't make it work, you may learn something extra while you're trying. So it is useful anyway. So let's continue with explanation of the example. And it is started at the previous lesson, week 10, to-do list. First, I decided to explain it as it is. I had to edit her code because of different library versions, and since assignment is similar, if I keep original code, it's not copy-pastable. You cannot really copy-paste anything into assignment because the API is different. So just because it has to be copy-pastable, otherwise you cannot refer, I had to change it. Otherwise, I keep the same logic as she did. If logic, I will change logic, I will create another branch for it. I will not kind of force it last moment on you. There are some imperfections in the code. I already discussed some of it at the previous lesson. So you have an option to do either how it is done in my example or in her example, the same logic inherited from her in this example. It is related to dialogues, because dialogues are done here is a little tricky way. And it was discussed at the previous lesson. I will post a recording video. I forgot to post it. I have tons of things piled up last moment. Okay, so let's in explanation. I'm following this. And changes in the code are done strategically such way that it doesn't contradict the explanation, or it at least doesn't contradict in any confusing way. It's just straightforward thing. Okay, so let's open to-do list. It is the same code as at the previous lesson. I didn't push updates. It is the same. At this moment, it is the same. I will make some changes for future lessons, but they will be small because some extra topic is not here. When I was porting code, that part is not ported yet. So let's open a to-do list app. And I'm going to explanation here. So I'm referring to her text, like to use images from her presentation. It's block, actually. So it is in Unit 5 at Firebase to Android app. Introduction to model Android structure. I believe we stop it before navigation. Is it correct? Last topic was lesson ended like, let's stop before navigation, right? We will see. Okay. I believe that for the first one, let's see. I will not repeat it, but we will see. Actually, I remember what was covered, what is not. So she is describing application with animation. Then our application architecture, this is covered. I remember explaining it. Then this is pure GUI. Explain it in class. I covered it. Edit task, and she said she's using Hilt view model. It's strange that she's using Hilt, but the course itself is not explaining how to use Hilt. So it's this missing feature in the course. But I already explained this in your course, so it shouldn't be a problem. Accessing services in view models. She explained that services is business logic injected in view models. I also explained how why she created extra layer. And the reason for it that Firebase API does not offer flows, option to flow, use flow. So far, we learned how to use Flow to reflect content of the database. And when it is Firebase, it's a cloud Firebase. And Flow is not, or Flow API is not provided at this moment. So she is using connection between callbacks and Flow. Callback API and Flow. And this is inside of the service. This part is not explained yet, but I just showed you relation. This was in the class. I explained that this log service is just to log messages. It's not login. Our storage service is to store data about to-do lists. And account service is to do logins and creating accounts and delete accounts in this one. This is actually will be covered first. I want to keep the same sequence as she is doing. She talks about, since we are using Hilt, we need to provide instructions how to create objects that should be injected. This particular module is describing link between implementation of a service, and service interface. Service interface defined as the interface, and injection point was defined as a type of interface. Our Hilt dependency injection system needs to know which implementation to use. Some dependency injection system will use the only one provided if it is only one provided. Hilt is not this way. It's not working this way, so it doesn't have this feature. And those dependency injection systems that will use the one provided when it is only one provided, you will learn about them later. There is a coming course in web application design implementation using Spring Boot that is using also dependency injection. And Spring Boot is somewhat similar but not copy-pastable. One of the obvious differences, Hilt is using connection between creating connection between objects. Most of the connections linking are at compilation time. So injection is done at compilation, but some small things are still postponed till runtime. Other dependency injection system can be implemented differently. For example, Spring dependency injection, which is targeting web application development server side, is using it at runtime, dependency injection at runtime. What is the difference? When dependency injection is happening, please stop chatting. I'm explaining not obvious things, so it's hard to find this information. When dependency injection happens at runtime, obviously it will take extra time to do, right? When it is done at compilation time, it is done once when program is compiled. What is the rationale? Rationale is application start time. So if dependency injection happened at compilation time, application does not have to create these links when it starts. So it can start faster. So for this reason, Hilt is using dependency. Most of the dependencies are linked at compilation time to increase speed of the starting of the application. And it comes at the expense of more complicated code, because this is how it works. Code is slightly more complicated. Dependency injection systems that do it at runtime when application starts have simpler dependency injection code, but at the expense of longer starting time. And since, for example, for Spring dependency injection, it is targeting server-side development, it does not really matter how long it takes for a server to start, because when apps connect to the server is already running. It will not slow down applications. So in both cases it makes sense. It's just different application. So there are some systems doing this at runtime, and code is simpler. Not drastically, but somewhat simpler. Most of them allow to limit scope of the injectable objects. In this case, she is limiting scope to view model. And actually, she changed this later, so it is global. In her example, it's global. But in the code, on the screen, it says view model scope. It is optimization, it's optimization. Initializing composable functions, and she describes that every screen has a composable function, and that is also composed of composables. When we navigate through application, somehow we need to change screen on user actions, right? So a user do something with GUI, and user wants to go to settings screen, press button settings. There is a kind of trick to pass this code out of the screen function, because you cannot change screens within the function itself, because the logic is outside of the function. The logic is done by navigation system, and it is outside of the function. So how it is done? Like before, she is using arrow lambda functions, pass it to screen composable, and these functions have some navigation in it, navigation calls. The navigation in this program is somewhat more complicated than in previous examples, but it is similar, but with extra steps. In some places it is required, in some other places she just probably wanted to stay consistent with that place when it is required. I didn't touch navigation change. I didn't change navigation system for the purpose of consistency, since she's explaining it, so if you can read this. Another reason why I didn't change it drastically, navigation, you will see that navigation is linked to login option of the program. And since I'm kind of learning this myself, so I'm not really great in implementations of logins for Firebase, so I decided just, okay, in the first iteration of this program, it will be the same. And if I can make it better, hopefully, I will change it. Otherwise, I will just keep it.
You mean authentication login?
Yeah, I didn't want to change login logic, and since navigation is using like login screens and create account, delete account, all this done through navigation. If I change navigation logic, I can break login logic if I do it incorrectly. So for this reason, I decided to keep navigation system untouched, except I just moved code slightly and renamed functions to have more meaningful names. But it is the same sequence. So I didn't want to break logins option. Here it is. I believe this is when we stop it. Configuring navigation graph, I believe this one, right? Because I don't remember explaining this for sure. So configuring navigation graph. If I'm wrong, correct me. I believe this was stopping point at the previous lesson. It took time to set it up because we had to create project on Firebase and link it to this project. If you didn't do it, you cannot run this app. You have to watch the video and repeat it at home, because I'm not explaining this again because it's multiple steps. I will post videos either tonight or tomorrow from previous lesson in this very lesson. So configuring navigation graph. I will open the code so we can compare what we see here and other pieces of the code in the program. So we'll see relation. Okay, so this is code. So she is creating navigation graph. And where it is. This is for dependency injection, and this is root screen. It is the first thing that we will, first composable that is called, essentially. I call it root screen, the entire piece on the screen. So main activity, you see it is calling ABP root screen. First composables, if we do not count this one. Set content and set scene. Let's look it up, ABP root screen. ABP root screen, and this is asking for permission to display notifications. So you probably noticed that this program, when it starts, it asks user to allow display notifications. It will be, it is future topic for these lessons, and we will learn how to do it. But now you will see that just this is the function call that is producing it. And what is magical inside of this function will be covered later in these lessons. So for now, we will just skip. We will know that when application starts, it calls this function. As she created surface for the purpose of the background, and she created surface for the purpose of the background. Technically, we don't have to do that. It is just her choice. You can set background separately in items inside. We didn't have this before at all in Google examples. Now, I want to discuss this part, and this is the part that I decided not to change, except one place where it was not possible to keep original code. Because the API changed it, I don't have such option anymore, so I had to change that part. So, what is APP state? This APP state, it is not the state that is held inside of view models. In the view model, it's the state of the screen, typically, right? A view model in her program is associated with screen, so she has a view model per screen. She doesn't have a global view model. Again, it's her choice. We could create global view model. That will be associated with the entire app available in every screen. For some reason, she decided not to go in that direction, and she defined ABP state, which is application state. It is global state. It is not screen state, it is global state. It's her choice. I haven't seen this in other examples. Perhaps I didn't see advanced examples. Maybe, most likely she knows better. So this is the first time when we see it. And it's not viewable. What is inside of app state? She is using remember call, and this function is a remember call will be inside of the function, so she is defining own function remember app state that is returning application state that will be remembered. It is definitely should be remembered because it is state of the app and screen is refreshed. So state of the app should not be lost when screens are refreshed. Right? So again, this is the first thing that we encounter this. Since it's related to navigation, again, I had to change it something, but my choice was to keep as much as possible. I didn't want to break it. So before we go, since this is the end of the story, this is permission logic. This is permission logic, and this is creating it. Before we go into scaffold, organization on the screen, let's see what happens here. So what does it return? It is returning object which is remembered, and which object is returning. So let's see. A function remember app state. It is returning result of the remember block, so it is something that will persist through refresh screen, and in type would be to-do list app state. So let's check if it is correct. So I understood this correctly. So, by the way, I just renamed it. Remember, it was renamed. It was different name. It was app. Make it so. So it is correct. So remember, app state is returning object that will be remembered, which is typed to-do list app state. So let's find what is inside of it. To-do list app state. So let's, some is obvious, some is not. So let's start from the top. This part, I had to change this part because of API change. She was, what was there, it was what is called? Scaffold state. So what is scaffold? It is a screen organization composable that is joining several items on the screen to make it work together. Navigation bars at the left, at the bottom, some toolbar at the top, floating action button, and also pop-up messages from the bottom. Pop-up messages from the bottom, they call it snack bar messages. So this is scaffold, function of the scaffold. And previously here was scaffold state. But when I look it up, current version of the libraries, such thing doesn't exist. So I didn't have an option to keep scaffold state because it's not there. Next, I look it up through the code, and I realized that scaffold state was used only to display pop-up messages from the bottom, That was the snack bar option. So although we don't have option for scarf all state, we can use snack bar state because it was used only to display the snack bars at the bottom. So it was logical to replace it with only necessary piece because big piece just wasn't available in library anymore. Perhaps they realized that if it's used only for one piece, why should we include everything? So definitely this is different piece, and code is redone based because of different type and different variable here. What else is here? Navigation controller. Obviously, navigation is part of the application state, so she decided to put it in the same object. Again, why? Okay, her design decision. If she decided to define an object that contains all state of the app, not individual screen, but entire app, so she decided to, for organizational purpose, to create an object that contains all state of the app. GUI. All state or GUI of the app. Apart from screens. Screens have own states. So she decided to stick nav controller here. And again, okay, I decided not to touch it, keep it there. Next, snack bar manager. Snack bar, it's a message that you will see pop it up from the bottom. And you need some code to pop it up. It could be done brute force by copy-pasting into GUI from documentation. But she decided, okay, she wanted to do it fancy. So she created class, she created object, so it's a global. So it's not a class, it's an object. Available globally. So it's not even injected, it is just global object. That is managing, it's not even managing it. It's called manager, but the word manager is confusing. It is not doing actual GUI management. It is storing information that will be displayed as snack bar messages. So it is not managing GUI, but it is actually container for messages. We will look into that. It is a separate piece. Resources. In the program, sometimes we need to look up resources like strings and images, and she decided to store reference to resource objects. Why? It's an optimization. So instead of asking for resources, you have already reference to it. A reference to objects that is provide access to resources. In my opinion, I will just remove it and make it less efficient, but easier to follow. But I decided to keep it. Maybe in next version, I will just make it brute force. And the most interesting part out of it, it is coroutine scope. And this part is interesting on its own. Why do we need to store coroutine scope as a part of application state? What is coroutine scope? It's a framework to run independent tasks from GUI, right? And so when we do something that takes a while, we start it as a coroutine, and coroutine scope, it's specific scope of that task. And it's a framework to run that task. Scopes can be limited to objects, and these will be limited to lifetime of GUI, this one, because it started from GUI. what is for? And the idea is quite interesting. And see, she definitely put a lot of thinking into it. So her design decision is smart. This is impressive, obviously. So what is the purpose of it? The purpose of coroutine scope stored in to-do list, and again, it's related to pop-up messages popping up from the bottom of the screen. The tricky part that we cannot limit those messages to the scope of the screen. Because if you navigate and that message is displayed in the scope of the screen, that message will be gone when you do navigation. So she decided to display that pop-ups independently from navigation, which makes sense because if you click on something and pop-ups is produced and you do navigation out, you still have some time message on the screen. So the logic is not to kill the message when you navigate to another screen. It will stay on the screen. I suspect this is for the cases when error happens just before navigation. You click on something and you go. So it will be visible to user. It will not just flash and disappear. So her coroutine scope variable here is stored in application state. So the scope will survive navigation. So it's not limited to view model. So this is my understanding why she's doing it. So messages will not disappear when you go between screens. It will stay a while, and after this, they will be gone. It's on timer, internal timer. So what is not explained yet? Resources, you will see it is self-explanatory. It is just optimization to access resources quicker. Snack bar manager, it is perhaps, this is library function, the library object, so there's not much to explain except when you see methods call it from it. Snack bar manager, it is her object, and let's look at this first, since we discuss application state. So let's find snack bar manager and see what is inside. And again, it's not managing messages. It is just managing storage of the text for the messages. Here it is. Name is not great, but okay, as long as we understand what it means, it's fine. So let's find where it is. I believe she put it into common. Snack bar, yes. So there are two pieces. One, as you see, it is global object. Why it is global object? Easy to access. This is why. I think the global object is like global variable. You can call methods of it. You can call access data stored in this object. And you don't need to inject it because it's already global. It's available everywhere. It is, I would say, definitely design pattern, but some people call it anti-design pattern because it is global, and if you have a lot of globals, it will be harder to keep trace of who is using it. Okay. This is the issue with global variables. If we have a lot of global variables, it is easy to lose trace which part of the program is using these global variables inside and changing them. So this is why globals are kind of singletons, like global objects, are sometimes called anti-design pattern. So it's design patterns that we should avoid. We should use it only when it really creates simplicity and perhaps not confusing in any way. So as you see, it is storing snack bar messages. So first let's see what is inside of snack bar message to understand this code. Snack bar message, it is sealed class. So what is the meaning of sealed class? See, meaning of sealed in front of the class is similar to meaning of sealed in front of interface. So far we saw sealed interfaces. So what it means sealed? It means class can be extended. It means it's open. By default, all classes for Kotlin is closed. You cannot inherit from them unless you declare them open or sealed. But sealed is limiting inheritance to all classes or objects mentioned inside or is within the same file. So technically this can be done here. It doesn't have to be inside of it. So only these two classes can inherit from snack bar message. This is the meaning of sealed. And there is no other things in the file, so only these two. So what kind of classes we have? We have string snack bar, and this is message stored in the string. Good but not perfect. Why? It's not good but not perfect because if this message is displayed to the user, probably it will be displayed to the user. Changing logic, say, conversion from resource to the string should be done outside of it, right? Because message to be displayed to the user should be already picked from string resource, so we have it as a string. Because we need to manage language translation. So it is useful, but before you display the string, you need to look up it from resource. String resource. But there's definitely option to display it, or message that is storing just reference to resource. So instead of string, it is storing string ID. Also possible option. Next, what is companion object? You know that companion object defines things that's global for the class, right? For the class. So this part will be shared between all objects created from the class. So it's like static in other languages. So we have two functions here. When we convert, we pick one second. We pick resource. We pick resources object, and we get string. What is for? The reason is that we have two implementations. We could store message as a string, or we could store resource ID. And this is convenience function to get string that is matching the string ID. Why is she using resources? And this is a different thing here from what we had. When we look it up, strings before, we used some function getStringResource function. Not resources.getString. The reason is that getStringResource function, I believe it's getStringResource, is available only inside of composables. But she is definitely outside of the composables. It's outside of the composables. So she cannot call getStringResource. So for this reason, she has to do resources getString. But again, it should provide string resource. It should provide resources object. And this is probably the reason why she is storing it. Remember, app state is storing resource. So she is not asking this each time. From the system, she is storing the reference. So it's a conversion from string ID to string. And if it is implementation from the top, you don't need to convert. So you have it inside of when, based on the type, right? So when this means current object is matching type of string snack bar, you don't need to convert, you just return message. But if type is this, it means it's storing ID, we need to convert ID into string in order to return string. So it's a conversion function. Okay. And what is this? It is to display message, but message is coming not from the string, not from resource, but from crash. So you see, we have conversion from throwable. Throwable is exception that contains message. From throwable to message, a snack bar message object. Okay, so what does it do? So, throwable dot. You see this function is starting with the type throwable dot. What does it mean? It's an extension function defined for the type throwable. So once we define this function, we can call to snack bar message on any exception. But scope of it, of course, is limited to snack bar message. Right? So we need to be aware that it is this in snack bar message class. So this is conversion to create snack bar message from exception. This message is referring to throwable, so it is exception dot message. So message from exception. If this is null, it will give empty. So this is a logic, or empty. To avoid null here. Next, what does it return? It is returning if. If it is not blank, it is returning a message that we pick and it is converted to snack bar. So it's called snack bar constructor. What is this? If exception doesn't have any message, it will display a resource snack bar. No, it will display string that coming from the resource. A resource is generic error, something bad happened. Okay. So this is her class created for the purpose of displaying messages. It is message class. She has options for given string, given ID, or throwable, which is exception. Quite smart, so good idea to learn. So this is the message class. This is a good that when we look at the code written by engineers, like first it takes a while to understand, which is not really great, and second we can learn a lot of things, right? And it is definitely reusable, so could be pastable. Snack bar manager. So it is global for sake of easy access, global object. So it is storing messages in flow. And flow in this case is used as a container. So mutable state flow, and what does it store? Snack bar message. But with question mark, it means it's nullable. So it can store null. Why? Because it is initialized with null. So if it is storing null, it means no messages. So she is using null as a flag here. If mutable state flow contains null, it means no messages. Why it should contain something? The issue is that a mutable state flow or state flow cannot be like, it has to be initialized with something. Because it is an API requirement. We have to initialize mutable state flow with some content. So we have to call constructor and provide the content. And the logical thing for a message, like no message. So she decided to use null as information, no message. And again, we can criticize it, but it makes sense as a logic. As before, this is mutable is private, but not mutable is public, referring to the same thing, right? I could just assign it here, and it will be fine. She decided to do it fancier, which is equivalent. So she's provided getter to snack bar messages. So when we refer to this public, it will call messages as state flow on this. But if we assign just this variable here, it will be just the same. In our previous examples, we just did that assignment. She decided just to make it nicer. So instead of assignment, she is calling getter and converted to type state flow, because by default it is mutable state flow. Yes, it is typically conversion. Questions? So it's a flow of messages that will be on the screen. And obviously show message that is not really showing, it is adding this to the flow. Snack bar message is resource snack bar, we created message and we add it to the flow. So this is the flow and this is value. Edit the message to container, it's not showing. But flow will be reflected on the screen, right? So adding stuff to the flow will be reflected on the screen. A reflection on the screen in this program is also more complicated. So we have to look at this part. For messages. For other things it is the same. For messages it's more complicated. Show message when it is message, not as a string ID. It is just assigned to the value here. The same. And clear is just to assign null, because null in her naming convention means no message. So as we see, it's not really managing snack bar. It has nothing to do with GUI. When we say snack bar manager, it can make impression that it is managing GUI. No, it is just managing data to be displayed in the GUI. Questions? So this is her logic about messages. It has to be explained first because first thing that goes in login, login needs to display messages, like login failed and so on. So this has to be understood first before we go into login logic. So this is, should we have break? We started at 11, now it is 12, close to 20. It's probably time for break. It's with the break, it will be midpoint of the class, right? Since let's look up where we stop it so it's clear. Snack bar is explained, snack bar manager is explained, and I'm explaining details of it because your assignment will also require some login, right? And also it will be login failed and blah, blah, blah. So it is necessary to understand this stuff if you want to keep the same logic. And easiest way is to keep the same logic, obviously, not to invent from scratch. So this is why I'm investing time into explaining details of it. So let's go back to our app root screen. So we created to-do list app state and to-do list app state. To-do list app state contains this snack bar manager, resources, and this we will see this part. It is library part. Coroutine. This is what I will explain next. Nav controller, you know about it. It will be used. And snack bar state is used to display messages. This is GUI part, you will see. So let's have a break, and we will look here after break.